Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Two Wise Birds. I'm Sue Boynton, independent dento-legal consultant.
And I'm Dr. Jane Lelean, dental business coach and trainer.
And today I'm really pleased to introduce a colleague. We've got a third wise bird with us today. We've got Dr. Sheetal Patel. Dr. Patel, could you introduce yourself, please?
I don't know about the third wise bird, but I'm Sheetal Patel, and I'm a dentist who's trained to practice solely orthodontics. So that's my specialty. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to join us. So first of all, can I ask you, why did you choose dentistry to start with?
I have to come clean. I can't say I chose it exactly. I come from quite a traditional Indian parent family, all good mostly, but basically it was kind of a choice of the 4 or 5 main vocations, and I was inclined towards science subjects. I was also a linguist. I actually did maths, chemistry, and French A level. So initially I'd actually applied to do French and law. And it was only at the last stages again that I went back to my sort of science base and science inclinations, and parents talked me out of doing medicine, saying, oh, you'll be old and grey before you have time for motherhood and family and everything else, and why don't you do dentistry? And I said, as all good 18-year-old Indian girls do not, is yeah, okay, why not? And I was just fortunate that I landed in something that I now love to do, so grateful for that. I don't believe anything happens by accident, but grateful that I've ended up where I have. So that was my journey into dentistry.
Wow, so we could have lost you. You could have gone down French and law and goodness knows what else. So we're very lucky we've got you. And why did you choose to focus on orthodontics, Sheetal?
Well, I can't say that was something that I knew I wanted to do during the course of my BDS. It was something that really came to pass after finishing. I had a really good mentor during one of my house officer years in hospital, and he said, oh, you're a clever girl, you've got to do something more. And I guess that's when I started thinking about specializing. It wasn't on my agenda whilst I was doing dentistry, but yeah, here I am. Why orthodontics? I think I knew what I didn't want to do, and I don't know if that's a good enough reason, but that was part of it. I knew what I didn't want to do, and I also like the fact that it's it's a treatment that we provide to patients who generally want the treatment. And I have to say, my very first recollection of stepping out of dental school and opening my doors and thinking, oh, I've done it, here I am, I'm a dentist, and I felt quite crestfallen that most people didn't actually like me before they met me, and they didn't want to be there, and I found all of that really quite hard, although eventually that becomes a rewarding exercise when you build relationships with patients, and obviously we learn that over time. But yeah, orthodontics, I just love it. It's a really it's a great thing to be doing for people. So yeah.
And you've got a real specialism within orthodontics, haven't you? So what's your approach to ortho?
Well, I think I probably have to begin with why I sought other approaches after working within orthodontics and in a specialist centre for a number of years, that even after 15 odd years of treating quite complex cases, I still felt that there must be a better way to do things, there must be a different way to do things. And I started searching outside of the UK, and I came across 2 organizations. One was the Interdisciplinary Dental Education Academy in San Francisco, and the other one is the Vienna Interdisciplinary School of Dentistry. And that has changed my practice in a nutshell. The treatment approach is one that's not my own. It's something that I've just learned from an esteemed Japanese professor called Professor Sadao Sato, who perhaps is not so well known here. But to put it in a sentence, I would say that he has he's looked at what we've been doing in orthodontics over decades, and he's had the vision to look at things with a real third eye, and he's opened my eyes to ways of treating people that is more conservative, that is more working with physiology to guide the jaw growth at at opportune moments during growth, but also the fact that we are adaptable beings and that you can apply these approaches throughout life. So without case studies to hand, it's difficult to share much more with you, except to say that you asked me what's led to your you practicing the way that you do, and it's that after working using conventional methods for a good solid 15 years, I felt that there was something more that I needed to know, and that there must be more out there to do things in a better way.
Okay, and you use the word interdisciplinary, and I know that you're passionate about collaborative dentistry. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, I feel, as I started saying, we are all dentists, and it just happens to be that we might have a little bit more know-how in one area or the other. And when people walk in the door, they do not have a label on their head which says ortho patient, implant patient, perio patient. They're a patient, and by definition that means that it's unlikely it's going to be a one-man band job. And it's, maybe I'm idealistic, but I genuinely feel that every patient should have a collaborative approach for the best possible outcome, or at least be offered that as an option, and that they know what avenue they're choosing. And I think we've been through decades of dentistry in what Professor Sato calls a repair fix cycle, where something breaks and you fix it, something breaks and you fix it. But we need to stop and say, well, if it's breaking, it's not necessarily bad dentistry. There's something else going on. There's some functional component. There's something else going on there that's causing these failures. And so yeah, so collaborative, because in my world, I think that's the only way to go, and for lots of reasons, for the benefit of the patients, for for the as a clinician, feeling supported, feeling like you don't have to know everything, you don't have to have all the answers. And it can be, collaboration is from the simple act of picking up the phone and being able to lean on somebody who's going to just hear you think your thoughts out, to actually physically involving other clinicians and maybe having them on the screen in a consultation with your patient, so in everything in between. So
and I think this is really, really interesting. So for many years we've been in the UK getting much more involved in specialism, where something's outside the range of a general dental practitioner or whatever, and they make a referral to somebody else. So how does that for you differ, making referrals to a truly collaborative approach? And what do you think is the benefit of a collaborative approach?
Well, first of all, our very valued and precious community of general dentists who are at the front face of people walking in with all manner of problems. I think there's been too long this kind of idea that, or if it's outside your scope of practice, you need to pass it on. So obviously there is some there's some value in that statement, but it shouldn't mean that patient doesn't no longer become not your patient. They've come to you first, you're the first port of call, and it should be possible for us to develop networks where the dentist is still part of that patient's care. It shouldn't have to be that they're just, and even if it's in the capacity they feel, no, this really does feel outside my comfort zone, the minimum they should be able to come away with is that, oh, now I know how I would manage this case the next time, or now I know maybe where I need to upskill so I can contribute to a case like this in the future. So, it's such a everything's possible. There are all possibilities there, because we'll have dentists who are 1 year qualified who might see the case of the same complexity that another practitioner sees who's had 20 years experience, but they both feel the need for input from others. So it's forming those fluid but collaborative networks where neither do you feel tied to any particular, you know, avenue, but it's open. Go to the people who can help your patient, you know. So it should not be exclusive in any way. I'm not writing a prescription or anything. I'm just saying that's how I feel, that, you know, it shouldn't be restrictive in any way, but that it should be possible that in any given area, we know that, oh, we've got this problem, this is, you know, maybe where we can go.
And I understand you invite referring dentists into consultations. Tell me about that.
So we have a screen on the wall here. So the idea is that dentists who refer patients in, I think there's nothing more valuable than them being part of that consultation process. So we would invite them to say, okay, well, this is when your patient's booked in, and if you would like to participate and you can block out that time in your diary, you're most welcome to be present by Zoom. And then you can see why that might work, because they get to experience where they're sending their patient, and then it builds trust, and yeah, and it also gives the patients confidence as well, that, oh, my dentist is listening in.
Cool.
And it helps them when they go back to see their dentist, because 9 times out of 10, they, you know, the trust is with the referring dentist. So they say, oh, well, I'll talk it over with my dentist and I'll come back to you. So it's great that it becomes an open conversation.
And I like that idea of that involved communication as well, because I'm guessing that the dentist isn't just watching the consultation, they can also have a little bit of input. It can be a 2-way thing, and indeed a 3-way thing when the patient's joining in as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the more you've got that better communication, as you said, the more it builds that trust and confidence as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask, if you get a dentist in these consultations and they're really interested in orthodontics, what advice would you give them next if they want to upskill?
Well, I mean, as you know, there's a number of possibilities for training, and it's very much down to how much time they're able to invest, what's accessible to them. But I would like to say that, for, you know, if they already have dabbled a little bit in some of the clear aligner systems, for example, or, you know, or Invisalign, or even fast braces, or whatever. I mean, there's millions of them. I don't know what all of them are. I would like to think that they would be able to approach orthodontic specialists in their area, because that would be the best way of learning, is case by case. You know, it's not possible for everyone to go into full-time training, neither do they want to or they need to, but why not draw on the people who have invested that time or been able to do so and share the knowledge, you know. And I think there's nothing better, nothing beats one-to-one. It might feel like a slow journey, but actually I see it as a faster outcome, in the sense that, you know, you bring a case and you go away and you've learned something, you know. And that,
you know, I think it's really interesting that we're having this conversation, Sheetal, because if anybody wants to go back and look at the archive of videos that Sue and I have done as the two wise birds, there is one overwhelming theme and one secondary theme, and the overwhelming theme is about communication, and the underlying theme is also about investing time. And communication takes time. And even what you're saying here is that the answer to the success and getting the case right and getting is making that time for communication. So whether it's dealing with complaints that Sue deals with an awful lot, whether it's teamwork and building practices that I deal with a lot, or helping a patient to be able to smile with beautiful straight white teeth, it's all about communication and scheduling that time.
Yeah, and I think for that communication to happen, I think it's all about being able to know when you need to slow down, because we're often making decisions in, you know, under pressure, and I think that's where we miss out, and that's where the patient misses out. So you know, in my practice, subliminally, I've developed the system where, you know, I've got, you know, the patients will go into one of 3 or 4 buckets where, you know, yeah, we know what we're doing, we can crack on, or absolute pause, stop, wait, doesn't matter how long it takes, but we need to stop and think and talk to somebody about it. So I think this idea of slow dentistry is out there, but I would like to think that we'll start thinking about slow orthodontics. Yeah, that's a whole
And
another
Sue,
subject.
that must be music to your ears. Look at that big smile on Sue's face as you say that.
So tell me more, Sue.
I'm always saying invest time, because if you invest time at the beginning of treatment, and I'm thinking about diagnosis, treatment planning, consent process, communication, that saves you time further down the line. And I know I'm talking to the converted here, Sheetal, because we're saying exactly the same thing. But when I kind of come across young dentists sometimes who are new into the profession, they're so keen to get so many treatments under their belt that sometimes that time at the beginning gets compressed. And it's only later down the line that you realise really that would have been helpful to spend the time there. So yes, it's absolutely music to my ears, that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very well known within my colleagues, certainly whoever on site with me is that I will send patients away at least once or twice before they come back and say, no, I really want this treatment. You know, it will never be the case that they come in and here you go, here's your treatment plan consent form, let's get you bonded up. That almost never happens.
Oh, Sue, I don't think I've ever seen your face so radiant. As somebody who spends so much time doing medico-legal claims and complaints. Look at it.
No, that's absolutely right. And I think this message is a really good message to be sharing around the whole team, because we get all sorts of people listening to these videos, and it's not just clinicians, it's everyone else in the team who needs to hear this message and is involved in the patient's treatment when we talk about collaboration as well. It's not just the clinicians. No. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, if you were going to summarize and say, based on your experience, and it may be just in the pandemic, or it may be going back over your whole career, if you had 3 pieces of advice to give a young dentist, what would they be?
Invest in yourself, whatever your life circumstances permit, to the maximum. There's never going to be a point where you cannot grow in personally and professionally, so never work to an end point, because there isn't one. And really value your patient, because I mean, for me, my patients are like my best relationships that I have. I just I've evolved as a person through them. Brings me huge satisfaction, and never ever treat patients as your own. Really treat them as your own, and you'll only end up doing the right thing for them and for yourself if you see them as that. So I don't know if that's 3, but that's why. Yeah,
it's awesome. They're awesome pieces of advice. Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us, Sheetal. We've had a short discussion, but I feel that we've covered so much ground, and we've got so much benefit from that as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.